They say being the Sigma is powerful, independent, mysterious, untouchable. Society romanticizes the archetype, painting it as the ultimate form of self-mastery, a man who moves in silence, answers to no one, and thrives outside the confines of hierarchy. But what they never tell you is this: that power comes with a price, and it's a brutal one. You don't just walk your own path, you bleed on it. Every step forward is carved from resilience, every victory weighed against solitude. While others chase validation, clinging to the warmth of approval, you distance yourself, not out of coldness, but from hard-earned wisdom. You've learned the cost of being misunderstood, of trusting too freely, of letting the wrong people in. So you retreat, not because you want to, but because you have to. Sigma males are the outsiders, the ones who don't follow the crowd, yet refuse to lead it. They exist beyond the binary struggle of alpha dominance and beta compliance, operating outside the social pyramid altogether. They are quiet, not from insecurity, but from observation. Calculating, not from manipulation, but from foresight. Self-reliant, not from arrogance, but from necessity. But that independence? It's a double-edged sword. It's both a weapon, sharp, unyielding, capable of cutting through noise and distraction, and a wound, one that never fully heals. People admire you in silence, drawn to your unshakable calm, yet they misjudge you out loud, mistaking your depth for detachment. You intimidate without trying, not because you want to, but because your presence alone exposes their own insecurities. You connect rarely, and only with those who see past the mask, the few who understand that your silence isn't emptiness, but depth. This isn't about glorifying the lone wolf. This is about the emotional toll of being one. Society sells the fantasy of the Sigma as a man untouched by need, a solitary force of nature. But the reality is far heavier. It's the weight of unspoken battles, the loneliness of a path few understand, and the quiet exhaustion of carrying your own world without complaint. Here are 7 brutal truths about being the Sigma male, the ones nobody talks about, but every Sigma has lived. These aren't lessons from a textbook or motivational quotes. They're scars. And if you recognize them, you're not just reading words. You're remembering. Number 1. Why society fears what it can't control. Human civilization has always been built on systems of categorization and control. From the moment we're born, we're slotted into hierarchies, assigned roles, and expected to follow established paths. This is why the Sigma male represents such a profound threat to the social order. He exists outside all conventional frameworks, an unclassifiable element that defies manipulation. The alpha male archetype, for all its bluster and bravado, is actually comforting to society. Alphas play by recognizable rules, they seek dominance, respond to challenges, and operate within the established power structure. They're the predictable kings of a familiar game. But the Sigma? He doesn't even acknowledge the game exists. While others are jockeying for position on the social ladder, he's dismantled the ladder entirely and walked away without looking back. This complete indifference to social validation creates deep unease. In workplaces, managers panic when they encounter employees who don't respond to traditional carrots and sticks. In social circles, people grow nervous around someone who doesn't laugh at their jokes or seek their approval. Romantic partners often become unhinged when they realize their usual manipulation tactics, jealousy, guilt, withdrawal of affection, have no effect. The Sigma's immunity to social pressure reveals an uncomfortable truth: most human interactions are based on subtle, or not so subtle, coercion. When someone demonstrates they can't be controlled through fear, he doesn't care about threats to his status. Flattery, praise doesn't stroke his ego. Social obligation, he honors only commitments he chooses. Emotional blackmail, he sees through the drama. It exposes how much of normal behavior is actually compliance through vulnerability. The Sigma's independence holds up a mirror to society's mechanisms of control, and people instinctively look away from that reflection. His danger lies not in any malicious intent, but in his mere existence proving that the emperor has no clothes. When everyone else is chasing promotions, social media likes, and neighborhood approval, the Sigma's quiet contentment with less reveals these pursuits as the hollow status games they truly are. This is why institutions marginalize him, why groups exclude him, not because he causes problems, but because his presence makes others question why they tolerate theirs. Number 2, the lonely paradox: why your strength is your greatest weakness. The Sigma male's independence isn't just a personality trait, it's a survival mechanism forged in the fires of repeated betrayal. Every time he trusted and was let down, every time he depended on someone who proved unreliable, another brick was laid in the fortress around his self-sufficiency. What begins as a defense against disappointment gradually becomes his entire way of being. This creates a devastating paradox: the very qualities that make him formidable also ensure his isolation. His ability to Solve problems alone means no one feels needed by him. Self-soothe means no one gets to comfort him. Make decisions without consultation means no one feels included. Handle crises quietly means no one witnesses his struggles. The modern world is built on interdependence. Workplaces reward team players, social circles value those who need them, relationships thrive on mutual vulnerability. The Sigma violates all these expectations. His competence becomes alienation. His resilience becomes distance. His emotional control becomes perceived as coldness. What few understand is that this isolation isn't always chosen. Many Sigmas reach a point where they want to connect but discover their skill set has atrophied. Years of suppressing needs, because expressing them was unsafe. Biting back vulnerability, because it was weaponized against him. Prioritizing logic over emotion, because feelings led to poor decisions. Have left him fluent in solitude but illiterate in intimacy. He can navigate a battlefield alone but stumbles in a living room full of loved ones. The tools that built his independence are useless for building connection. The cruelest irony? The more he masters himself, the more intimidating he becomes to others. People don't know how to interact with someone who doesn't need advice. He's already considered every angle. Doesn't seek validation, he's secure in his choices. Doesn't engage in gossip, he finds it pointless. Doesn't perform emotions, he experiences them deeply but privately. So they keep their distance, mistaking his quiet confidence for disinterest. He becomes the person others turn to in crisis but avoid in calm times, valued for his strength but never invited to show weakness. The rock everyone leans on but no one thinks to ask if it's tired of bearing weight. This is the Sigma's cross to bear. The better he gets at standing alone, the harder it becomes for anyone to stand beside him. His greatest strength becomes a self-perpetuating isolation. The more he needs no one, the more no one believes he could possibly need them. And so the fortress remains standing, not because he prefers the solitude, but because no one has proven worthy of the vulnerability required to open the gates. Number 3, why being yourself makes people uncomfortable. Most people say, just be yourself, but they don't mean it, not when you're a Sigma. This personality type doesn't play by the usual rules. A Sigma isn't loud to get attention. He doesn't fake smiles to keep peace. He doesn't follow trends just to fit in. He shows up exactly as he is, direct, self-aware, and completely uninterested in pretending. And that's what makes people squirm. Because deep down, most people are performing. They change their tone depending on who's in the room. They act confident while secretly chasing approval. But a Sigma doesn't need a script. He walks in with the same energy no matter who's watching. That kind of honesty makes people feel exposed. It shines a light on everything they're hiding. He's not trying to make others feel small, but when someone isn't afraid to be real, it forces others to face the fact that they're not. And that's where the tension begins. People start calling him difficult or cold, not because he's wrong, but because his presence removes the masks they're used to wearing. Being yourself should feel freeing, but for a Sigma, it often comes with side effects: pushback, distance, and being misunderstood. Still, he keeps showing up, real. Not to prove a point, but because he simply doesn't know how to be anyone else. And that alone makes people uncomfortable. Number 4, the more you grow, the harder it gets to connect. Growth sounds like a good thing, until it becomes the reason you feel completely alone. For Sigma males, growth isn't about climbing social ladders or gaining applause. It's personal, internal, and constant. They're always learning, questioning, breaking patterns, and letting go of things that no longer serve them. But what no one tells you is that the higher your mindset climbs, the fewer people you find who can meet you there. Most people are comfortable staying the same. They repeat old habits, recycle old conversations, and keep shallow connections because it's easy. But Sigma males crave depth, not just in thought, but in relationships. And that's where the disconnect begins. Conversations that used to feel fun start to feel empty. Places that once felt exciting start to drain your energy. And people you once felt close to start feeling distant, not because they've changed, but because you have. You start holding back your thoughts, your ideas, your real self, not out of pride, but because you've learned most people won't understand. Or worse, they'll feel threatened by it. This creates a silent kind of loneliness, not the kind that comes from being alone, but the kind that comes from being surrounded by people who don't really see you. Sigma males don't outgrow people out of arrogance. They do it because their inner world keeps expanding, and not everyone is willing to come along. Number 5, they call you distant because you're not desperate. People often mistake silence for coldness, but that's not what's really going on with Sigma males. This personality type doesn't chase people. A Sigma doesn't text first just to keep a conversation alive. He won't fake interest to avoid making someone feel bad. And because of that, people start calling him unavailable or hard to connect with. But the truth? He's not distant, he's just not desperate. Sigma males don't beg for attention. They value their time, energy, and peace. If someone wants to be close, they'll make room for them, but they'll never force it. They've learned the hard way that chasing people often leads to fake friendships, one-sided effort, and emotional burnout. Most people are used to others trying to please them, so when a Sigma doesn't do that, it throws them off. They expect effort. They expect follow-up. And when it doesn't come, they assume he doesn't care. But he does care, just not in the way people are used to. He listens more than he talks. He pays attention to what people do, not just what they say. And if he senses that someone's just looking for validation, not real connection, he quietly pulls back. People don't know how to handle that kind of calm confidence, so they call it cold. But in reality, this distance is just self-respect. A Sigma male doesn't stay where he's not truly wanted. He's not angry, and he's not bitter. He's just done performing. Number 6, the hidden emotional battlefield. On the outside, Sigma males look calm, sometimes too calm. But inside, there's a war going on that no one sees. This personality type isn't cold or numb. The truth is, Sigma males feel everything. They just don't let it spill over. Over time, they've learned that showing too much gives people room to use it against them. So instead of reacting, they absorb. Instead of venting, they carry it. And that's where the real strength lies. It's not that they can't talk about what's going on, they could. But letting it out wouldn't fix anything. That's not how they're wired. That's how the armor forms, not from avoiding emotion, but from choosing to manage it alone, with discipline and control. People assume they're unaffected because they don't see the cracks. But beneath the surface, it's a constant push and pull, logic versus emotion, restraint versus release. That internal battle becomes a way of life. They've taken hits without lashing out. They've swallowed pain without turning bitter. And they've learned that silence isn't weakness, it's power sharpened by experience. The hardest part? No one sees it. People think they're fine. But fine is just a mask that keeps them functional. Sigma males don't need to unload, they need space to process. What looks like distance is just protection. What feels like indifference is just exhaustion from carrying it all alone. And that's the battlefield no one ever talks about. Number 7, the war between freedom and belonging. The Sigma male's soul is forged in the crucible of absolute freedom. It is his lifeline, his religion, the uncompromising principle around which his entire existence orbits. He breathes autonomy like oxygen, thrives in the uncharted spaces beyond society's fences, and answers only to the quiet authority of his own conscience. Yet this very freedom that liberates him simultaneously imprisons him in a paradox of his own making. He observes, with the detached clarity of an anthropologist studying an alien culture, how ordinary people bind themselves together through shared dependencies. Coworkers cement alliances through mutual complaints about the boss. Friends deepen bonds by reliving old wounds and childhood traumas. Lovers intertwine their lives not just through passion, but through need, the need for comfort, for security, for validation. These are the invisible threads that weave the social fabric, the currency of human connection. But the Sigma male deals in a different economy. His self-sufficiency, while empowering, renders him oddly bankrupt in this exchange. To need nothing is to anchor to nothing, and while his independence keeps him adrift from the storms that capsize others, it also leaves him perpetually unmoored in a sea of human connection. The silence of his chosen isolation isn't merely an absence of noise, it's a presence all its own. On those nights when the weight of his autonomy presses down like a physical force, he could easily break the silence. He knows the script, laugh a half-beat too long at the watercolor jokes, feign interest in his neighbor's vacation photos, perform the ritualistic dance of social niceties. But each forced interaction is a small death of authenticity, a tiny betrayal of his core truth. The cost compounds over time until he's left staring at the equation. Is this gnawing loneliness really the mandatory tax for sovereignty? So he exists in perpetual tension, balanced on the razor's edge between two irreconcilable truths, that his nature makes him too self-contained to truly belong, yet too fundamentally human not to crave it. He is both the archer and the target, the prisoner and the warden of his own freedom. Number 8, when ambition becomes your only companion. There comes a point where chasing goals stops feeling exciting and starts feeling lonely. That's something most people don't talk about, especially Sigma males. For these men, ambition isn't about showing off. It's not about status, trophies, or keeping up with anyone else. It's about becoming better than they were yesterday. But when that drive becomes the center of their world, it slowly starts to push everything else out. They stop texting back unless there's a reason. They stop going out just to relax. They start saying no to anything that doesn't move them forward. And little by little, their ambition becomes the only thing that feels honest. The only thing that stays. At first, it feels good, focused, powerful, productive. But over time, it gets quiet. Too quiet. The truth? Success doesn't always come with celebration. Sometimes, it just comes with silence. No one claps for your late nights. No one sees the sacrifices. And while everyone else is bonding over distractions, the Sigma male is building, alone. This kind of loneliness isn't about having no one around. It's about feeling like no one gets what you're doing or why it matters so much. And because those with a Sigma personality rarely explain themselves, people just assume they've checked out. But they haven't. They're just locked in, on something bigger than comfort. Ambition doesn't replace connection. But for a Sigma male, it becomes the one thing he can count on. And sometimes, that has to be enough. Number 9, the curse of seeing too much. Where others see a stage, the Sigma male sees the scaffolding. Where they hear dialogue, he detects the unspoken subtext humming beneath the words. His perception operates at a frequency most never access, not by choice, but by the inexorable wiring of his psyche. This isn't some cultivated skill, it's the inevitable byproduct of a mind sharpened by solitude, a consciousness that has spent too much time observing to ever fully participate. Most people navigate life through a comfortable haze of social scripts and inherited narratives. They follow the well-worn paths of convention without questioning why the paths exist, who laid them, or where they truly lead. The Sigma male lacks this luxury. His mind is a relentless pattern recognition machine, dissecting every interaction with surgical precision. He sees the microtension in a colleague's forced smile, detects the subtle shift in vocal timbre when someone lies by omission, recognizes how laughter modulates based on who's within earshot. This isn't paranoia, it's simply what happens when a perceptive mind is denied the anesthesia of social absorption. This hyper-awareness is a double-edged sword. On one edge, it serves as an impenetrable armor against manipulation. He can spot a disingenuous agenda from the first syllable, sense ulterior motives in a handshake, detect the faintest whiff of inauthenticity. But the other edge cuts just as deep. It isolates him in a world where everyone else seems content with surface-level connections. How does one relax when they perpetually see the strings? While coworkers bond over sports statistics, he's noting how the boss's eyes flicker when certain names are mentioned. While friends share gossip, he's observing how the story changes between tellings. There are moments, rare, vulnerable moments, when he envies the blissfully unaware. To laugh without analyzing why the joke landed, to trust without unconsciously testing for consistency, to believe without that quiet voice whispering "look closer," what would that be like? But the curse cannot be undone. Even when it exhausts him, even when the constant analysis feels like carrying an invisible weight, his nature compels him to keep watching, keep assessing, keep seeing what others miss. And so he moves through the world like a ghost among the living, present but apart, understanding too much to ever fully belong, cursed with clarity in a world that prefers the comfort of illusions. His greatest strength becomes his most isolating burden, to always, always see through the veil. Number 10, the silent bargain, power at the cost of warmth. The Sigma male's mastery of control is not merely a skill, it is a survival strategy honed through silent wars fought in the shadows of his psyche. Every ounce of discipline, every restrained reaction, every carefully modulated response represents a victory over chaos, a triumph of will over instinct. But this hard-won control comes at a devastating price, the slow suffocation of his own humanity. Where other men rage, the Sigma calculates. Where they crumble, he adapts. Where they wear their hearts on their sleeves, he keeps his locked in a vault, protected by layers of psychological armor so thick even he sometimes forgets what beats beneath. This isn't repression, it's strategic withdrawal. He has learned through brutal experience that emotions in the wrong hands become weapons, that vulnerability to the wrong people becomes ammunition. So he has become a master of emotional judo, using restraint as both shield and scalpel, turning every potential weakness into controlled strength. But this transformation exacts a terrible toll. The mechanisms that make him unshakable in crisis also render him inaccessible in intimacy. Affection becomes a complex algorithm of risk versus reward. Vulnerability transforms from natural impulse to calculated gamble. He finds himself constantly running threat assessments on his own emotions, vetting every impulse before allowing it to surface. The tragic irony? The depth of feeling that makes him capable of such profound connection is the very thing he must suppress to maintain his equilibrium. Those rare souls who have breached his defenses discover the unsettling truth. Beneath the impenetrable calm lies a man who feels everything with terrifying intensity. His love, when given, is absolute. His loyalty, once earned, is unshakable. But these gifts come with conditions forged in betrayal, conditions most cannot meet. He will love you, but only if you prove yourself worthy. He will need you, but only if you demonstrate you won't use that need against him. He will let you in, but only after you've passed tests you didn't know you were taking. And so the bargain is struck, day after day, year after year, power in exchange for warmth, sovereignty traded for surrender. He becomes a living paradox, both fortress and prisoner, architect and inmate of his own emotional isolation. The walls grow taller, the gates heavier, the moat wider, until even he struggles to remember there was ever another way to be. In his quietest moments, in the hollow hours between midnight and dawn, he sometimes wonders what would happen if he simply stopped. If he let the walls crumble. If he allowed himself to need, to want, to break like other men break. But these thoughts are dangerous luxuries, quickly smothered by the ruthless pragmatism that keeps him functioning. To relinquish control would be to invite chaos, and chaos is the one enemy his strategies cannot contain. So the Sigma male endures his paradox, powerful yet impoverished, self-contained yet starving, admired yet fundamentally alone. He walks through life as both king and exile in his own skin, trading the messy warmth of human connection for the sterile perfection of absolute control. And if the cost sometimes feels unbearable? That's just another feeling to be mastered, another variable in the equation, another silent sacrifice on the altar of his own independence. The world sees only the strength. Only he knows what it's costing him. Only he feels the weight of everything he's locked away to maintain it. And only he understands the cruelest truth of all, that the very traits that make him extraordinary are the same ones ensuring he'll never be truly known. Conclusion: the Sigma's burden and his quiet triumph. The Sigma male walks a path few can comprehend, one paved with both power and isolation, clarity and solitude. He is the unseen architect of his own destiny, the unbroken voice in a world of echoes. But his strength is not without sacrifice. Society fears him because it cannot control him. Relationships elude him because few can match his depth. Warmth often escapes him because he has learned, through scars, not theories, that vulnerability in the wrong hands becomes a weapon. Yet for all the weight he carries, there is a quiet victory in his existence. He is proof that it is possible to stand alone in a world that demands conformity. That one can be unshakable without being cruel, independent without being heartless, observant without being cynical. The Sigma male is not broken, he is refined. Not emotionless, but selective. Not cold, but conserving his fire for what truly matters. His life is not a rejection of connection, but a testament to its value. He does not love lightly because he knows what it means to love deeply. He does not trust carelessly because he understands the cost of betrayal. And though his journey is often solitary, it is not without meaning. In the end, the Sigma male's greatest lesson is this: true strength is not the absence of need, but the courage to need wisely. He may walk alone, but he walks free, unowned, uncompromised, and undeniably himself. And perhaps, in a world of borrowed identities and performative lives, that is the most powerful statement of all.